I'm watching the people on the screen.
It's just two.
Okay, well, I added more, but thank you for taking the time to join us today. Really appreciate the work you've been doing on the ground. Now, quickly tell us a bit about the rising right in Canada and how it's been able to gain a foothold in the working class. Do you feel it's simply fiery rhetoric?
So my piece, which I wrote a couple weeks ago, and I really do appreciate all of you having me here and showcasing the work that I do. I do appreciate that. But like my insight as a ground organizer from just knocking on doors, and I've been assigned to northern and rural communities outside of Toronto. So I'm an organizer based in Canada. And the communities that I was visiting in the pandemic, particularly, I saw the rise of this sort of People's Party. I don't know if your viewers know what I mean by the People's Party, but
No, can you tell us a little bit about the People's Party?
yeah, the People's Party is this new party that was founded by Maxime Bernier, and it comes out of Quebec. And basically, this party sort of existed, but it really led to a stronger formation in the pandemic, right? And a lot happened in the pandemic. And I know a lot of us have been through so much. And a lot of that anger and the vaccine mandates that were controversial all led to people sort of moving towards what I call far right, reactionary right. And I call it like, in the People's Party, I would define as an anti-statist libertarian party. So really about, cryptocurrency, really about like
Wait, time out. Hold on. Let's for a second. Hold on. There's a little bit to unpack here.
Oh, I thought you meant timeout because I insulted cryptocurrency.
No. Like, you can insult it all you want. Like, hey, crypto, your mom sucks. Like, you insult it all you want.
Yeah. I was like, oh no, the viewers like crypto. They're mad. They believe in Bitcoin.
Crypto don't know its daddy. No. You can totally insult crypto. Crypto's a bitch. Are they peddling crypto? Like, is that part of it? Sounds almost like Amway for right wingers.
Yep.
Because that would be hilarious if that's all it was just a multi-level marketing scam. And how do you feel about taking the language of definitely left movement, like calling it People's Party? Like, that literally sounds like a leftist struggle, right? Socialism is all about. So are they taking a lot of the language from the left?
Yeah,
Really?
Exactly. Yeah. And right now, the Conservative Party, the new leadership is Pierre Poilievre, and totally uses the language that the left should be using. And
give us an example of it, because I want to know some of the language, because the crypto thing is really funny to me.
Like, it's the anti-elite. We need to he's done a lot of videos. His name's Pierre Poilievre. He's the leader right now of the Conservative Party, and he was on the ground supporting the Freedom Convoy, and I want to call it the Freedom Convoy. I know people were really confused watching from the US about the Freedom Convoy because it was being called the Truckers Convoy. And there was actually great articles that came out from Canada that showed that 90% or something of truckers were vaccinated, and a large diaspora of truckers were actually living in Brampton, which is just outside of Toronto, and it was Punjabi diaspora. So the Punjabi community, was vaccinated, but they had created this misinformation that the people who were doing this January 6th thing were working class people. Now, I make the argument that there are some working class people in it, okay? We can't, the liberal and centrists in Canada do this thing where those are those people and they're not politically correct. So this is where I argue the problem is starting to. We need to acknowledge that some of our neighbors, our family and people sympathize with anti-vaccine mandate. And I would argue that because the vaccine mandate was punishing to the working class.
In what sense?
Like the cost of it. If it was paid by the government, and the government could afford it. That's my argument. The government can afford it. There were old plants and workers that didn't have jobs that said, we can manufacture a mask for you nationally, publicly. Like, there were alternative ideas. We've turned so capitalist barbarism that we can't even entertain public ownership. We can't even think, oh, in the 1980s, airplanes were publicly owned. Maybe that's why they were cheaper. Maybe that's why you didn't have all this chaos, right? And we've sold everything, telecommunications, production, and all this stuff. And then we enter a global pandemic, and everything is, the working people are shouldering it. Mask costs, vaccine costs. Well, the vaccine didn't cost any money, but you have to understand it was different in Canada because you all in the United States, I'm saying you all.
You people, yeah.
You people, of all. And then Canada was in a queue, and we were paying for tests. And if you remember, and I'm sure many of your viewers remember, like your boss is asking for a test one day, not asking for a test another day. So it was really burdensome for working people. So I just think that really the vaccine mandates is for the greater good. I believed in them, but I don't believe the working class and the working poor should pay for that.
Well, let me ask you this question. We talk about this on this show a lot, and I've spent a good amount of time in Canada. I've never been a citizen. We actually have a Canadian that's part of the show. Sadly, I asked him if he could come on this one, and he couldn't because he's flying back from somewhere. Is there a mistrust in institutions in Canada like there is in the United States? And when I say that, I mean, people are constantly, criticizing the school systems. They're constantly criticizing the lack of a true welfare state. Like, I know you have healthcare there, which, it definitely surpasses anything we have here in the United States, but it does come with some small obstacles. Wait times can be kind of long. Are people kind of playing up these quote unquote deficiencies in systems and pointing to that and saying, you had to wait 2 months to get that MRI? That's a failure. If you had private insurance and paid more, then you could get that MRI quicker. These vaccines are stopping you from going to work. Is this the kind of rhetoric that this right-wing People's Party is using to galvanize a disenfranchised, more atomized working class?
Yes. The right, the center, I would argue, it's the same thing in the United States, billionaires and millionaires. So they purposely make public infrastructure fail. And they've been working on this project since, I don't know, nerdy people will know better than me, right? Like, I don't know, the 70s, like this project to move money from public infrastructure, from socialist, even the United States subsidized a lot of different education, healthcare, farmers, and it's beneficial. It leads to development. It leads to supporting the middle class, building a middle class, right? And the one thing I have learned through the pandemic is that the government purposefully wants the public institutions to look horrible. So in the United States, they're always going to make public schools look horrible. They're going to demonize public teachers. They're going to demonize nurses. And really, it's because you deliberately, because it's a capitalist system, right? You deliberately mismanage the money, and they'll deflect and they'll pay attention to somebody's salary who may be 100,000, when really these people are like CEOs and billionaires, right? And so as organizers, we have to move the attention towards the real enemy, which is like the banks that have been bailed out, the billionaires. In Canada, it's the monopoly and oligarchy of grocery stores,
Really?
Galen Weston, he's a horrible human being. He owns all the food. Like, the government can actually intervene and make bread prices and all of this like a more standard price so that people can afford it. They can actually do that. They do it in other countries. We just have to look.
Is there still a maple syrup monopoly?
I don't know about that. I don't eat maple syrup, but I'm sure there is.
Look it up, man. There's like a maple syrup cartel out there.
I believe it.